Well, good afternoon, everyone. We first of all want to start by saying credit due on this material and analysis, I show my screen here in a minute here, is written by an author named L. Levy. We're pleased to have studied this article, and it was through a plumbing mechanical publication this past year called Exit the Warehouse. The reason his article grabbed our attention, and I'll bring up the slideshow here. There we go. We as a company, Professional Plumbing Group, are two brand names you may know very well, Wolverine Brass and Plumb Master. And we have formed a national account group. We're pleased to be working with PHCC and QSC. Al Levy's article really taught us a whole lot, to the point that we wanted to become subject matter experts and helpful in the field as a vendor. So we'll go on to the next slide, and we have come up with an agenda in which to fully enjoy the article and its completeness, and then have opportunity for question and answers or sharing of experiences. By all means, we're going to be covering the points that are on this slide. You'll see that we'll have a setup portion to what we're going to discuss, and then we'll go into the steps, step by step, that was written and discussed in that article. The pictures you see on the top are warehouse examples, and by all means, the pictures on the bottom you can see are truck examples. By all means, we are not even remotely suggesting this is a typical plumber. When you're looking at truck examples, there's always a story behind the story as to why the plumber's truck has gotten in that condition. In the top two pictures, more visually pleasing, we're going to discuss in the article a warehouse setup that'll be detailed but yet simple, and how the room should be set up, how bins can be labeled, and how you can run systems for inventory management, and inevitably having your warehouse levels to the point where it's supporting the trucks directly and not stocking extra product. When we have inventories in the warehouse that we view as too much, we start putting it in a category that we may call shrink. It's part of what we call bad product or product not moving. What happens in the warehouse, the article discussed that we have a tie-up of the cash flow where, needless to say, the cash could be going to other parts of the business to help the business grow, not be tied up on assets sitting on a shelf. What also happens though in the warehouse when we become, in our own way, I will say in the bottom part, a supply house of our own, we run into examples where our shrinkage and theft risk could actually increase. Typically, plumbers that are not having any system in place at all, running basically on, well, not just good trust, but just we've never really had an issue of theft before, and we want to give our technicians the idea that they are valuable, and we don't doubt it. They still suffer an increase somewhere between 15 to 20% in this category of inventory loss, shrinkage, damage, or theft. When we're talking about your facility, point number 3, tie up unnecessary space. The space of the warehouse could be set so that it's more effective in your building, thus opening up other parts of the building for space. When we are speaking about extra costs for labor, and in particular a warehouse manager, we're not necessarily, you'll see in the article, looking to eliminate that role or suggest that happening right away, but at least have the role be discussed where it's easier for the person in your warehouse manager role to be a more effective manager for you. And then when we have also extra costs tying into labor, we have the costs of insurance, electric, and storage costs. Furthermore, let's go into now the truck model. When we're having inventory management, we have two pieces that tie in place. We have the warehouse, and then we have the relationship of the warehouse parts to the truck. What's happening when we're not having the right inventories is our trips to the local supply houses or big box stores increase. Typically not just as far as time, lost time management, billable hours, but it could be as often as 9 times a week because he or she does not have the right parts for the job, When we're losing that time, we're losing time for sales opportunities as well. Each trip to a local supply house takes minimum 30 to 60 minutes. I'm currently speaking to everyone from Lincoln, Nebraska, and some of the service areas out here are much longer, as you can imagine, than 60 minutes if they need to get a part for a round trip. Increasing vehicle costs, more trips mean more miles, gas usage, and maintenance costs. So we're have the wear and tear on the vehicles going around looking for parts. We'll discuss also a little bit more in depth the customer satisfaction piece for you. Leaving that homeowner's home without completing a job does hurt the reputation. I don't have it showing on this slide, but we have better business information now too, that typically a homeowner, if the job's interrupted and the plumber does have to leave for a part, on average, your rating has already gone down 15 to 20% when they're watching your truck leave the driveway. And then, of course, too, the homeowner's confidence may be going down at that point as well. We're going to go into now each step by step down to the conclusion of organizing the warehouse. Step one, orange dots in organization. We've seen this in many inventory warehouses already in the shop. It's been a practice for many years, but it seems to be effective. The goal is we want to find out, number one, what you have in the warehouse, understand how it's moving and what's not moving. The dot stickers will begin to just a system of using a color per month or per time period you decide, and you'll start actually going back. They recommend in point number 3 every 3 months, and do it again with that next dot. Point 4 brings out that after 1 year, we can really see if that item is on the shelf and is collecting more than 3 dots. We know for certain at this level, we do not have a software system in place, and we're down to just a really good ground level of bin boxes. This is the time to reduce or eliminate that item and get your shrinkage goal back in shape. We can go through those items, test them, evaluate if they should be tossed or sold at that point. With the warehouse, you'll see, I'll go back just briefly to the picture I showed, the above 2 pictures, the layout of the warehouse there. We're recommending picture number 2 is a nice picture showing where you have a nice open area for walking and organization with the bin boxes. Down to the last half of the slide, mapping the warehouse, the specific area thing for everything in the warehouse. We can have a system where you know which area it could be by part, repair, the type of how the part's used, or it could be even, I've seen examples of your different vendors. You know, if you have products you buy from one vendor, they're in one area and so forth throughout the warehouse. But anyways, having the maps and then the labels that we use for our warehouse will know where it's easier for everyone to know where they are. We have point number 3, clear visibility to the items in the warehouse. And that is the key to knowing and reordering the items as well. And point 4, very closely, work with your current suppliers. Make sure the orders are correct, proper PO. Number 2 is addressing now the area connected to your warehouse. That's your truck, and standardizing truck kits. Lay out everything within your truck you think needs to be on the truck to meet 80% of the goal of the warehouse floor. Vendors, I want to add as an extra point, vendors have lists already available to you. We do in the case of a warehouse layout with pricing or with truck stock and service trucks, and I would imagine other vendors too. They can help you with that goal and helping you think what should be on the truck. Furthermore, just to stay on that point, many folks, yourselves may be included, many of you have the ability in the software systems where you know what you're ordering from where at all times. The goal is really to having an 80% utilized for your trucks to be within that warehouse, so we can concentrate on that other 20% to get revenue back from stock that's not moving. Okay, point number 2, when we're building the truck shelving, you can have the floor of the warehouse first for easier stock location and shelving. So again, that goes to the layout of the floor, having the high turn products, toilet repair products, say in a service plumbing truck, have it located so it's in correlation with the shelving in your warehouse. And then when we're standardizing the kits, by having the shelving in the truck, we can begin loading in the truck. And the point of ghost inventory, that is a term used in the industry. It's more defined, ghost inventory, as a mirror image of parts of one truck within your warehouse floor being needed for your smaller warehouse, and having that being 80% of the warehouse you're using. On to step 3. In the supplier category, there's very, very good reasons to have your hat hang on one supplier, and there's very many good reasons to have a whole basket of suppliers supporting you for parts in stock. Within our article, it did come up that probably interviews of 2 to 3 suppliers should be conducted, with the right supplier having to partner with you doing a maximum of the inventory management needs. There will be specialty items, we realize in studying the article, and areas in which other vendors still are needed, and one supplier cannot supply all. And point number 3, the right supplier can enable you really to go transitioning the role of the warehouse to a day-to-day restocking, and really just an emergency restocking basis only. By then you have a fleet of trucks, and we'll be going into a very key element, and that is the role of the warehouse manager, helping that role develop itself into a revised role where it could be more effective. But back to the supplier, after the last one, select a supplier, send a letter of email, and put down on paper what you expect and want from that supplier in regards to anything from price stabilization, business arrangements, down to expectations of service levels, and so forth. What could always get the, the wheels off the road when it comes to having something new roll in? That is our human side and element of the equation. We could try many things, and in all of our experiences we have everywhere from business to raising family, we need to get the human element on board. Getting the technicians on board really comes down to a point of what's in it for me, and having them feel valuable, invested, and bought into the process. Some suppliers come up with ideas for you to expand on that issue, in which they could send direct shipments to technicians on their trucks and have the right parts and right stock for you. Number 2, having them understand really has a well-stocked truck should really not only just avoid extra trips, but keep the stress level down and the focus on what's at hand, and having their value as an employee be one and such we don't feel we're doing many things on an emergency or a rush basis. Then form just a small written documentation with the system and expectations you have for the buy-in, whatever agreement you have with technicians on the program. If they're on board, they're in agreement, by golly, it's going to happen. So make the techs accountable in point 4, and be prepared, though, to enforce changes and penalties if you don't have that happening within your business. A reward point system happens for positive reinforcement, not even just from the sense of you as a business, but also vendors have reward systems as well in maintaining high levels and excellence in service to the technicians and you as a company. When we completed step 4, we're getting close to our goal, and we're into the revising, or really revising in a vision basis, what the warehouse manager could be doing in a role, and rethinking the warehouse manager role within your organization, and have it in areas where you have more direct impact, where they're happier and you are, as far as their not only just contribution to the company, but being the leader in charge and the person looked to for anything involving warehouse inventory. Putting down, though, point number 2, what his or her current tasks and how they would change with the new system, just has a nice understanding for that person in their role and what you want to achieve for your business and your role in the business. Number 3, training plan for the new roles. Really invest in the warehouse manager in the role. Identify areas that they might need more skills or expertise in. It may be being comfortable using iPads and electronics, down to actually how to maybe have more of a role of being an accountant for the business as well, helping. Sitting down, number 4, with the warehouse manager, reviewing their new roles and training plan, and the compliance really sets you then in the right motion to get a final point, commitment and agreement on what the new role should be. Down in our 7-step process, we're already at step number 6, where things are really coming all together, and that is recording and reviewing the activities, the parts used and replenishments once a week. This is in regards to your inventory and a system that you can have where it's set up for you where you feel it's very simple and works very well with the suppliers and vendors that you have. We do recommend the flow being ordering parts and replenishments once a week, and also we recommend the flow of older stock of inventory out the door before you start bringing in the newer. But on our next sentence, understanding what working with does not work is also going to help with, again, adapting, refining that system, and having constant communication with the techs and warehouse manager really is the key, because, again, tying in, that's the human part to our idea and equation. Within step 6, our second one is having then our system in place with inventory. At this point, you've reduced this inventory size to a very large degree over a matter of time, initially by rolling out the old inventory and establishing what we identify as ghost inventory. And again, that is the inventory that you have on your trucks, and you have that inventory in the warehouse as an emergency basis inventory. And be open always to tweaks and adjustments. Nothing is ever perfect on the outset of anything or any idea. But the process and this effort to really getting into, again, what Al Levy calls exiting the warehouse, really starts happening at this point that we go finally to our last step, and that's enjoying the rewards of it. By now you've achieved in your company, the owners really have control of the roles of the warehouse and trucks. They have employee buy-in. They have a new role imagined for the warehouse manager, and they have suppliers and vendors selected at products and prices that you're happy with, and a system of having replenishment. So you have control of the warehouse and trucks. At that point in the process, start reaping the rewards, and that'll be the bottom line on the profit and loss statement.
Hey, Eric.
Number 2, taking, yes.
Hey, sorry for interrupting. We had a quick question if we just step back for just 1 second. Someone asked, what is a best practice for determining what is inventoriable versus what is not?
Okay, and I'm sorry, could you repeat the question one more time?
Sorry. It's we just received a question just a minute ago saying, what is the best practice for determining what is inventoriable versus what is not?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Going back, I'll go back to a slide where we actually discussed that to some extent of the question. I would say what is inventorial and what is not is a part that you've had in the shop for over a year. You may be already certain that that part has been there over a year, but if you look on step 1, find out what you have under 4. The dots in organization is an effective way where you'll know for certain over the course of a year what is a moving inventory part and what is not. Okay, thank you for that question. I was wrapping up actually here on enjoying the rewards. We'll go to the second point there, and that is having relief from that question. Not having and paying for excess inventory starts happening in the business. You have a reduction in parts and tools getting lost or damaged because they're actually an inventory piece being at least accountable and traceable, either in the warehouse or on the truck, on the parts and tools point. Number 3, our technicians recover time lost that really can be used for opportunities for immediate sales for you, but also less of an emergency feel and less of a stress level, especially for our technicians that we really do care about. Second to last point, our increase in customer satisfaction. You're not leaving the job, keeping your ratings, scores, very high if we followed all the steps that you have and happy customers, which I'm sure you do. And we're getting back down to the business of running the business and less stress, more success, and envisioning the business doing more and exciting things except instead of trying to trace parts and worry about where things are at any given time as much. We know that's not impossible, but the goal is to greatly reduce that. And with that, I want to thank everyone for listening. And Wayne, I'll turn it to you for any more questions and answers, or questions for me to answer.
Yeah, sure. So I do want to open it up to our members right now. And just a little reminder, if you do have any questions, look to the lower right-hand side of your screen. There should be a box labeled questions. We'll give people a couple minutes here if anyone's typing in something. I do see that someone did raise their hand, so maybe they are in the midst of typing something. Okay, we got another question here. We got a couple questions here. Just give me 1 second. What is best practice for inventory count frequency, full counts or cycle counts?
Oh, I don't have a definitive answer on it. So if I could, Wayne, let me work out finding that answer out, because I think there's probably some good material. That opens up a whole other discussion, and I think that's a great question.
Okay. And Michael, yeah, we'll try and make sure to follow up on that. And let's see. I just want to reassure everyone that I will be sending out a follow-up email, and in that email there will be a recording of the webinar along with the PowerPoint slides. I know some of you all have been asking about whether you'll be getting the slides or not. Let's see. Okay, so for the suppliers, can you have more than one supplier? That's the question. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be any more to that. I'm sorry, Eric, if that's a little bit unclear.
No, I actually think that was another great question. The article had brought out to us that you need to select a primary supplier. There is recognition out there that you have specialty suppliers. You may have a supplier who really does have a certain few parts you absolutely love and must have. So, but it does bring out that you should have a most definite primary supplier to help your system, for the most part, run smoothly.
Sorry, there's just a bunch of questions coming in. So, can you speak a little bit more? Can you speak a little bit more about ghost inventory in relationship to the shops with more than 5 trucks?
Yes. Ghost inventory would be a summary sheet of parts that are carried for the trucks, and we would recommend that you have a ghost inventory established in the warehouse as emergency supply parts for those trucks, to have an element of every piece in the warehouse. Commonly, though, in warehouses, once we explore what inventory is moving and what's not, you're going to discover over time a lot of inventory that's just dead weight. And we're encouraging you to explore what that inventory might be. But ghost inventory, again, is meant to be a mirror image per se, or a total list of the parts that are on your trucks.
All right. And do you have any recommendations for barcode scanning for parts taken out of the shop and or trucks?
I do not. but I do know that on Google search, that comes up with many options, and they discuss how they are better than other barcode scanning. I do want to note, though, barcode scanning is the most popular and seems to be the easiest system in place. And you could either, as a business, establish your own barcode scanning system, and then everybody should work off of what's called a universal barcode, or you could find a supplier that would run the scanning equipment and everything, and just work with you in that way. So you could do it, or your supplier could furnish that.
All right. What resources have proven most successful in selling unneeded inventory? Any online resources that you could potentially point them towards?
I know that there, again, it's a Google search mechanism, but yeah, honestly, I would be speaking out of turn over who's the best or ones that I would recommend. Right. So, but thanks for the question.
All right, just a couple more here. Should we use the primary supplier parts numbers or convert them internally into our own so they can be tracked in our inventory accounting system? So I think you just touched on this, but if you think there's a different answer.
I love the question. Well, it's actually an excellent question, because it would step into what what we would recommend, or just my experience out in the field in this area. I would really just establish your own numbers, and then your vendors cross-reference for you what the part numbers would be. So that would be the best way, especially if you have your own software system that tracks it for you. I realize if you establish your own internal part numbers, they internally go into other areas of your business. So yeah, I would say universal would definitely be the best way to do it, instead of having everyone kind of run off the primary supplier.
How many turns of an item constitutes it being a regulatory stocked item?
Well, that's a great question. Each turn, as we defined it, is a 3-month period, and each turn is also defined as that colored dot. We would have yellow dot, first 30 days, first 3 months, and then a different dot. Or if you wanted to speed it up and have a more, many more intervals in the dots. That really falls upon you and the part. We pulled away from the article believing, though, that any part that is over 4 turns or 1 year is considered an aged out part.
All right, and then there was another question about barcodes, but I'll just I'll mention it as well. What about implementing a barcode system, and how do you get started?
Sure. Again, just be sure that your suppliers on their end that you're working with work off of the universal barcode, and you should be in great shape, no matter who you pick. As long as you're using the universal barcode and your suppliers are compliant or able to do that, you're good to go.
All right. And I think we have a last question here, and thanks for being patient about that. If you use a supply house to reload inventory, do you have a process recommendation to help protect against price gouging and overstocking? So if you use a supply house to reload inventory, do you have a process recommendation to help protect against price gouging and overstocking?
To me, that sounds like the solution of the supplier and their ideas, and the idea that you like best. Not to skirt around the question, but I think there's many good ideas out there that may to you sound a little bit different, and you may have to think what would work best for you or not. So I'm sorry if I sounded like a politician, but I think that's the most fair way to do it, is tap the ideas of your suppliers and the people you respect to work with you on this, because this could really impact your bottom line in a great way with a system in place.